Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Jennifer Brady. I'm in marketing for TCG Process Global. Whether you're joining us from California, Switzerland, or anywhere in between, thanks for being here. This is our first webinar of 2026, and we're doing something a little different. No slides, no theory, just a live demo and real conversation. So we're here to show you how LandingAI's Agentic Document Extraction, or ADE, integrates directly into OCTO, our process automation platform. And we're going to build a working automation process from scratch in about 15 minutes. If you've ever wondered how fast you can go from zero to a deployed document workflow, you're about to find out. So let me introduce the team. From LandingAI, we have Tony Lee, VP of Partnerships and Business Development, joining us from California, and Tian Rosandich, General Manager for LandingAI, joining us from the UK. Process, we have Neil Walker, our Head of Product, who's going to be leading today's demo. We'll kick things off with a short discussion, and then Neil will take us on to OCTO for the hands-on build. Feel free to drop your questions right into that Q&A box anytime during the session, and we'll have time to answer them after the demo. So before we get into the demo, we want to take a few minutes to talk with Tony and Taeyeon about what we're actually building here and why this partnership makes sense. At TCG Process, we've always believed that organizations should have the flexibility to choose the AI services that work best for them. OCTO is built to orchestrate processes across tools, not lock you into one. And so LandingAI's agentic document extraction fits right into that philosophy. It's powerful, it's accurate, and now it's another option you can drop into your OCTO workflows. So let me start with a question for you, Taeyeon. One of the challenges our clients face in the sheer variety of documents coming into a single process, different formats, layouts, even languages. So how does agentic document extraction handle that variability without requiring a new model or extensive configuration for each document layer, or document type, I should say?
Great, thanks, Jennifer. It's fantastic to be here, and thanks for having us around the table here with you. It's a really good question, and I think a lot of the people on the call today will know that document extraction has been around for many, many years, and there's a number of approaches that people are taking, OCR being the most kind of basic approach. And people get good results in certain areas. But I think, like you were saying, with the complexity that companies are receiving in the different document types, and really documents are not getting any simpler, they're getting more and more complex. And the variety of documents, this is putting a big challenge on companies to deal with this type of complexity. So when Landing approached the problem, coming from our very rich, strong background in visual AI, we really looked at new ways and novel ways of actually doing and kind of dealing with this type of challenge. And what we did was we applied our very strong understanding of visual AI, using our own proprietary models, combining that with an agentic approach. So things like deterministic code, looking at how do you blend LLMs into it, and really kind of creating a scenario where we have a zero-shot approach to effectively taking the most complex documents and then kind of extracting the information out of them very easily. Why that's important is because if use cases are failing or they're generating, let's say, 80 or even 85% value, that's not enough. You need to be extracting high 90s in kind of accuracy in order for the use case to even be viable. So sorry if I spoke too long, but a little bit of an introduction into what we do.
Perfect. Thank you. So Tony, this one's for you. ADE delivers structured data from unstructured documents, but what happens next matters just as much. So from your perspective, what do you see as the most common gaps between extraction and downstream execution, and how does this integration with OCTO address them?
Yeah, great question. I mean, everybody loves to process documents, right? But joking aside, nobody processes documents just to process documents. People do it to run operations, to solve a business problem, open an account, run a claims check, run regulatory checks, do risk analysis, you name it. And so the downstream is incredibly important and probably just as important to what Taeyeon said, being able to accurately get information as well. Which is why we're super excited about the partnership here with TCG team and in particular the OCTO product. The knowledge to know the different industries and being able to solve those business processes in a very simple way, I think, is a very difficult thing to do. And we found the TCG team here to be exceptional at doing that over several decades. And so we're excited to see how we can go take this to our joint customers within different industries.
Great. Thank you so much. So the last question before we jump into the demo, for organizations evaluating agentic document extraction, particularly in regulated industries like insurance or financial services, what use cases are you seeing move faster from pilot to production, and what makes the difference?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I can grab that one. So we involved with hundreds of projects across the world, which is really exciting. Since we launched our product just under a little bit about a year ago, we've been kind of inundated with demands, and we've been fortunate to have been approached by some of the leading banks and insurance companies in the world purely because of the fact that our technology really does do what it says on the tin. The use cases, I think companies are being quite pragmatic about it. They're looking at use cases where they can get quick value and they can actually, show the business as opposed to doing some, glorified kind of POCs. We're getting a lot of interest in KYC type of projects, so know your customer type of environments where companies really need to process huge amounts of information, very different formats, and then use that in order to either make approvals on loans, look at either fraud prevention and things like that. And there's also a large regulatory requirement for a lot of these companies to know their customer and to run processes around regularly checking and being up to date on the information coming from customers. But if you think about it, in financial services or banking, it's everything from loans, mortgage applications, credit management, anything around even invoices, or kind of just understanding and kind of dealing with a large amount of information that companies have to go through. And we're doing a number of projects at the moment where companies are looking at hundreds of millions of pages per year in volumes, just because they have so much of this just documentation that they have to process. Insurance is also very interesting. Claims processing is a huge one. Anywhere where you're dealing with customer documentation. And that's really where we, as a company, we really thrive in the fact that the more complex, the better. So handwritten notes, formats that are very maybe unknown to typical models, we really deal really well with that. So it's a broad range, and I think that's really where we can help companies. So hope that answers your question.
Absolutely. So thank you so much to both of you. So now you've heard the why. So let's get into the how. Neil, over to you. Show us what this actually looks like when you put it all together.
Okay, thank you very much, Jennifer. Thanks, Taeyeon. Thanks, Tony, for your input. I think just to kind of add to Taeyeon's last point there, particularly in the insurance industry, we've really seen one of the benefits of being able to kind of work with technology partners like LandingAI, but within the platform is being able to kind of iterate through multiple versions of processes. Nowadays, organizations are wanting to really achieve a kind of quick win with a kind of minimum viable product delivery, and then continue to add more and more value into their processes as they go. We kind of just probably reached about the 6-month point now on a recent insurance project for claims processing, and that process is now already on version 8, and it's kind of iterated through, adding more and more functionality as the client has become more aware of what's possible and really thought more about how processes can go deeper into their organization, connecting not just the people who are responsible for collecting information, but really touching the people who are going to do something with that information as well. And that's really one of the benefits of branching from just being able to capture data to being able to really build end-to-end processes for that as well. So with that, let me share my screen and let's get started. So It's kind of, as Jennifer said, it's really a new format for us today. We're not going to address really any particular specific business use case. Normally, we kind of, show you a demo where we're showing something like claims processing. Today, it's more about the technology. It's how do we take a technology like LandingAI and all of the great things that they can do and build it into the processes that we want to run inside of OCTO. So let's start with LandingAI. Let's really get a little bit familiar with what the guys are able to do. And for this, I kind of prepared a couple of examples, and then we'll get into building the end-to-end process. But I started with typically difficult documents. So I just captured this using my mobile phone. It's kind of an application for creating an ID badge. Someone's filled it in, and they're varying bits of information on there. So we've got the logo, we've got the person's picture. They've said where they'd like to have access to, and they've given some justification why they're going to need to be able to access the office out of hours. So we first of all see, typically here we've got the parsing point, which is essentially breaking down the document into that more readable format, really thinking about how documents are read by human beings and more or less replaying that concept back out in the parse stage. And then in the extract stage, as the guys kind of suggested, we build a schema, an extraction schema that basically is applied to the document regardless of how it looks. And it's essentially defining, this is the information that I'd like to get back from this document. And here you can see the power of that visual AI that Tayon mentioned, where we're not just looking at documents like an OCR engine, but we're able to identify things like photographs, analyze the photograph, check for signatures, who signed it, is it signed, and also read things like the handwriting element on the document as well. So a really kind of short, focused example on some of the things that are typically quite challenging. We've also got an example of how do we build this stuff. So that's kind of, already the schema is there, but what if we just start with a document? So here we've got another form, perhaps from the HR world, where we've got a new employee. He's a good looking guy, and we've got some information that we'd like to capture about this person, and ultimately we want to build the schema to help us do that. So in the background, we can see the parse process is already running. It's essentially understanding what's contained within here, so we can see now the various different blocks that the information has been broken down into. And in the background, the LandingAI playground, as it's called here, has analyzed the document, and it's now ready to say, based on what I found, these might be the fields you're interested in reading. So it's identified various bits of information, and I'm quite happy. I'm going to start with those suggestions, which will give me my initial schema, and I can run it, and we can see what are those results going to look like. So we can see that already here, we've been able to identify obviously all the header information. We've got the biography data, and we can see that from the figure here, we've been able to read that they're going to work 7 days a week, typical. But we might want to extend that. So we might say on the day, what's going to be the start time? And I might also want to know what's going to be the end time. And I might say, okay, I'm interested in the photo, and we'll just say describe the photo. So we can add those fields to the schema, and we're able to see what the results will now look like. So we should extend the information from the figure to include the green bars that you can see to say this is going to be the start and end time of each day. So obviously, again, much more visual representation of the document than typical. And we can see that the description is a headshot of a smiling bald man, which might be slightly offensive, but it's very accurate at the same time. So it's really giving you an idea that using this approach, whether we build the schema manually, we use the automated tools, or we can even build the schema outside of here, and then just apply it. Ultimately, it's that schema that's going to drive the information that we want to get from the document. So let's switch to the one I really want to focus on today. And here we're going to look at a typical kind of financial services type document. So we've got quarterly results in a presentation format. So most of the large financial institutions will produce something like this. Actually, the real world, they're much longer. I kind of condensed the information down for the purposes of this demo. But you can see here that information that's presented in kind of chart form is now made available in that kind of visual information. So if we click on here, we can see that the data points from the efficiency ratio graph are converted now into information that's structured in a way that we can apply logic and we can find that data. So much like before, we're going to have an extraction schema. And in this case, of course, in the real world, we probably want to extract many more data points but for the purpose of the demo, we kind of said, who does it belong to? What was the revenue like last quarter? What's it like now? What's their loan situation looking like across various different periods? And give me a summary of the efficiency ratio trend. So analyzing the information in this chart and really presenting it in a slightly different way. So we've kind of seen very quickly different ways that we can make this information work inside of LandingAI and build very powerful schemas for extracting data. And now we want to get to the point where we're going to bring that to life inside of a process. So at the minute, we just have extraction. We can't do anything with this. It's not in any way connected to a business process. But we're going to take the schema that we produced, download it, and that's what we're going to use in order to bring our process to life. So at this point, we actually should start our stopwatch. So this is where the 15 minutes begin in order to see if we can make this into a business process. And my business process is essentially going to start with me describing what I want to do. So in order to do that, I need to go to Automation Designer, which is the area where we start to build applications inside of OCTO. And before I do that, I just want to show you the process modeling area, just so you can see exactly what exists today. So in my system, I've got 3 different organizations, which is essentially just the structure in which we can manage and host multiple different business processes for different areas of an organization or across multiple organizations if you're an outsourcer or shared service center, that kind of thing. So at the minute, we've got TCG Bank and XYZ Consulting. We've got a system area as well. We'll see, we'll see how that's affected by the work that we're about to do. So in order to get me started, I'm going to go into our AI assistant, and the AI assistant is here to help me get from having an idea to bringing it into reality. And to save my typing and my mistakes in typing, I've already created some prompts that I'd like to use. So the first one is essentially to say, I've got a new client called Beacon Analyst Group. They've got a team of consultants who are going to analyze financial data. And the first project is for quarterly earnings reports. Can you create me a process for that? So we can hit go. And the AI assistant is analyzing that and it's converting it into the model that we use inside of the platform. So we know that the top level organization from a structural point of view is going to be for Beacon analysts. The unit is for the business consultants, but the process is very much for quarterly earnings analysis. And the next thing we need to do is describe what the process is going to do. So again, I've taken the liberty of pre-typing this out. Otherwise, we definitely wouldn't hit 15 minutes. But the process here is going to start with importing some emails. Then I want to extract the attachments. Anything that's a PDF should be converted to an image so we can display it. And the activity LandingAI should be included, because obviously that's why we're here. And the results should be displayed to a user inside of Check and Act. So Check and Act is our human in the loop. interface. And for now, we'll just add a no operation to the end of the process, and that can hold our documents till we decide what we're going to do next. So we can hit onto that one. And in the background, again, the AI assistant is analyzing what I've just asked it to do. It's looking at our activities library, and it's trying to match my request to available functionality inside of the platform. And we can see now it's basically added the activities that are required in order to bring this process to life. And we'll see how that visualizes the demo continues. The next thing I need to do is take that schema that we created and use that in order to create the data model that we need inside of our process. So for that, we've kind of created a kind of overall prompt that kind of explains how to understand the LandingAI schema. And now we can see this is our schema itself. So we can see all of our different fields that we saw in the other interface that we want to be able to transfer now into our process. So we can just simply copy that schema, replace the text here. And again, I'm going to copy this, and it's going to create for me a document type. So all of the fields that I want in order to bring this particular process to life. And so we can see it's created some fields, and it's created a table for the load amounts that we want to collect from there as well. So very quickly, we've converted the schema into our structure. But I know I'm thinking I'm going to add some additional fields, which I'm going to use later on in the process. So I want to have some field for analyst notes, and also for report data. We'll see why as the demo progresses. Okay, so they've also been added for me, and we're now at a point where I need to just say, okay, I'm going to get this show on the road. So we say add a DPS config. Add a DPS config activity. This is what goes wrong when I start to type. Okay, and we need to just say initialize the DPS config. And the config is essentially the part that connects our process with the application itself. So allows us to define the behavior of certain fields, validations that we'd like to perform, ultimately what the UI might look like when we present the information as part of the process flow as well. So we've actually now, we've built the outline of our process. And if I refresh my view, we can see that now we've got a new interface for Beacon Analyst Group. And inside of there, we've already created the schema, so the fields that we saw inside of there and the tables and their columns as well. We haven't created any extraction because here we're using the LandingAI functionality for that. So we'll see how that's called as part of the process. But in the real world, we might combine different extraction methods. So using that kind of visual approach, but then at other times we might use extractors that have grounding against master data. And here, again, inside of the application, we can make those links to master data. We can write validation rules, and we can create a form for when we want to display the information to a user. And we can see that the AI assistant actually already created the initial outline of a form. It's probably not the nicest form in the world, but we'll do the job for the demo. So actually here, I know I don't need the report data to be visualized. That's something we're going to generate later on in the process. I'd like to make this field a little bit bigger because it's going to help to visualize on the screen. And actually, I'm going to make all of these fields the same size. So we're going to make them just a little bit wider. And the analyst notes, we're going to type into. So we're going to give them the opportunity to add their own thoughts about the report. And we should make that a multi-line field and make it a little bit bigger so they've got a bit more room to work. And finally, we should add an area for our table. So we can add another area here, make it a little bit bigger, add a grid, and we're going to link that to the loans table. So the moment I say it's a data grid, it knows that's going to be a table. I just say, yeah, I want to display all the columns to the user, drop that in, all good. Maybe we should just rename our group to be something like total loans, so it looks a bit nicer. And we can save. We'll save that there. And actually, we're good to go. So we built the majority of our application part. We know what the information is that we want to fill, and we're ready to go. So let's jump back over to Process Modeler, refresh our view. We've got Beacon Analyst Group, we've got Business Consultants, we've got our process flow, and inside of there, we've added all of the activities that we need in order to bring this to life. And here, excuse me, we can see that each of the activities inside of the configuration panel is pre-configured with information that we want in order to get this process up and running. Actually, I can see this time it's decided not to behave. We just need to fix that. So we'll bring in, we need to start with an import email and then extract it. But we can see a lot of the configuration is pre-filled. And the reason for that is that we have a lot of reusability within the platform. So I've been able to say for this configuration, I know how to connect to Office 365. The only thing I need to do is go into my variables list and say, this is where I'm going to import from. So we're going to say inbox/analyze, save that one. And we need to decide when they've been imported, where are we going to put them? So we'll say imported. Okay, so we can save that. And the last thing we need to do is just simply connect our schema that we've just created to the LandingAI activity. And that's what will execute our extraction capabilities. So we can say that's all good. Actually, now our process is ready to go. So technically, if we look at the stopwatch, we've only taken 10 minutes and we should have a running process. The last thing we need to do, though, is, of course, make sure it really works. So we need to switch to our process monitor. We can see our process is ready and waiting to go. The last thing we need is to send some invoices, some documents to it. So I'm going to move my reports into the Analyze folder. And from there, the process should pick them up and begin to work. So we should see in a moment, those documents will be collected. Just while that's working, we can take a look and see, here's our Bank of America form. We can see that one's the same one we saw before. But of course, the reports are very different for every organization. So when we see Goldman Sachs, the information is still the same, but the way it's presented is very, very different. And same for Wells Fargo, that we have, again, all the same information, but it's presented in a completely different and completely unstructured format inside of here as well. So if we go back to our process flow, we can see that it's already kicked off. It's imported the email, it's extracting the contents, it's converting the image, the PDFs to images as we asked it to do. The next activity will be to call to LandingAI and be able to execute the schema that we have generated. You'll notice that the platform is executing these simultaneously. So the benefit again of the platform is that we can really accommodate very high volumes of processing, not by simply saying we're going to queue one after the other, but we can actually scale the system to be able to send multiple documents to LandingAI all at the same time. And as soon as the results are available, they'll be presented back to the user inside of Check and Act. So we'll see in a short second that our documents arrive into the Check and Act queue, and we should be able to start and analyze those. Of course, when we're running a demo, everything always takes a little bit longer than it did in preparation, but we should be good to go. And while we're waiting for that, we can see that back in our automation studio, we can navigate to the check and act interface. And check and act is where we can go in order to view the results of processing. So we can see now 2 of our 3 documents have already arrived, and we can open this one up and we can see exactly the results that we were looking for. So here's our Wells Fargo report. It's from the 3rd quarter of 2025. This was the date that it was presented. The revenue information for this quarter came from here, and the previous quarter from there, and the efficiency ratio information was presented here. Total loans is presented as a chart within the document. And as we navigate through, we can obviously find in what's essentially a pretty long document all of the information that we need in order to make a decision of what to do next. So the analyst could come along and they can say, looks good, but we heard there might be a merger next quarter. So they're adding their influence to this. So what would we do with that information? Here we can go back to our process and decide, well, what happens after check and act? And here, rather than essentially nothing happening, we can decide, well, what I'd like to do now is connect this to some other capability. So we can connect it to OpenAI to generate an outbound response. We can take the information that we get, we can store it from the JSON response we get from OpenAI, and then send it out as an email. So we can combine multiple activities. Here I've already created the configuration. We can just import it from a different process. So again, using that kind of reusability concept to be able to really speed up the building of processes. So it would have helped if I connected to the right one. So we've imported OpenAI configuration. We can say, this is what I want to do with the response. So I'm mapping it essentially to a field. And finally, I want to send the results via email. So we're going to say, this is our final task. And then we can just simply say, I'm going to publish the process again. It's not necessarily a great idea to do it in the middle of processing, but for a demo, it's all good. So if I go back to my process monitor, we can see that in real time, we've changed the outcome of this. So we've got our document ready to go. And when I say I've finished analyzing it, we can release the item and it will go into the final 2 steps of our process. So into OpenAI, where we're going to send essentially a prompt that says, take the information from our document and analyze it and give me some report data back that I can include. The parse, as we saw, just maps that data. And then finally, the send email maps this into a response template, so a nice looking document, which we're able to send via email. And to finish our demo, we should see that in my returned emails folder, we've got a nice review here that says this is the data for Wells Fargo. This is the structured information, so the data we got from LandingAI. And this is the generated report data. So we took that information and we can see that at the bottom here, it talks about the potential merger that might have significant impact going forward. So we're combining their extractive AI, like we see from the landing guys, with generative AI in order to produce something that we can send as an output to this particular process. So yeah, apologies. I think I've overrun a little bit, but I think we still hit the 15 minutes. Well, somewhere we got our timing slightly wrong, but hopefully that was useful for you. Just very quickly to finish off, you remember the smiling guy who was at the very beginning of our demo. We here have the same concept, so we took the same schema from LandingAI, we implemented it, and this time, rather than using OpenAI, our goal was to take the picture and crop that from the document and make it available for the next system. So here we can look behind the scenes into what we call our common data model. And here we can see the field data, the tables that we're able to extract, the audit of our process, which of course is really important, and the media that we generated. So we started with a PDF, we created a JPEG, we got some results back from LandingAI in a JSON and a PDF format, and then we stripped out the smiling bald guy, and that's the end of the demo. So yeah, thanks everybody for listening. I'll hand back to Jennifer to see if we've got some Q&A, if everyone's managed to stay on for a few
Thank you
moments.
so much, Neil. So as you saw, this isn't about replacing what you're doing. It's about adding a proven tool to your toolkit. So one that gives you more control, flexibility, more options when you're building document processes that need to actually work. So, all right, we have barely any time for questions, and we have a lot of questions. So, oh my goodness, you guys, we're definitely going to be answering some of these offline. But if you guys want to take one of these, if anyone wants to take one,
I can grab the first one about the healthcare. So we have got just from a landing perspective, we have many healthcare customers, and we're more than happy to talk to you about that. Some of them which are known in the market are Roche and AstraZeneca. So just two, but we have a number of other ones as well, not as big as those. So happy to speak to you about those.
cool. Well, I also wanted to say thank you so much for you guys for joining us and for this great session. So don't forget that you will get a copy of this after so that you can pass on to colleagues. We're so excited about what this partnership makes possible. We'd love to explore how OCTO and LandingAI's ADE can work for your organization. So with that, I mean, if we have time for one more question, by all means, go for it if you guys would like, or we can answer offline.
Yeah, sure. I think I mean we had a kind of a few questions about the versions of Octo that these are available in. So the AI assistant is part of our new 2026 release. So that's something that we've kind of had in the background for a little while, but really we will see in the early part of Q1 this year. But the LandingAI integration and activity is available for earlier versions of Octo as well. So you can take advantage of that integration if you're using 2023 or potentially even earlier versions of the platform as well. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you so much, guys. Like I said, we will get back to all of these questions because we've exceeded our time that we promised you, and we're so happy that you joined, and we look forward to working with everyone.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Tony. Thanks, Tayon. And thanks, Jennifer. All right. See you, everyone.